API database very soon. Like, let's do some database work. After API, we'll touch on that. Um, but if you are not in the automation school, you might not really, there's some kind of automation I want to touch in API that you might not be able to know how to automate your database inside your automation world. But I'll get to touch that. I'm even thinking of bringing other people. I don't want to be the one doing presentation every time. So I would like to bring other people to also come and do workshops with you. But today I know that, yeah, I know all of you are good with APIs, you know what API is. But they are still, most of the time when I look at the test scripts that testers write, it's always a case of them testing what API is for what API, especially when it comes to automation testing. You see them just do some kind of API automation. They're like, okay, who taught you this fake thing that this is the way they should do API automation? They are not really doing in depth of automation, okay, of automation API testing. Um, but I would need to talk about what automation is, yeah, what API is before you even start automating. So you, because again, I'm always saying that you don't need to automate what you don't even understand exists and why it exists in the first place, right? You like, it just doesn't make sense to start telling me that you're automating. Like, what are you automating? Why even automating it? You know, what should you even be automating? These are the things that you want to know very importantly. So let me share my screen. I have one of my courses. I mean, for my old students now, when they see the screen, they'll be like, this screen, where have you been? My guy, where you day? Now, wow. So I'm going to be sharing the screen now. It's an old slide of switch to software testing, which we used to call test code camp that time. Is anybody on this call that knows this slide?
Yes. No.
Can you know this slide?
I don't say no.
Wait, what cohort were you?
This is even before testify now.
Like, what cohort did you do this STST training?
Maybe 7 or 8. I don't know. Maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah. So these are like,
But I've been seeing this before.
yeah. So this is like old presentation that we used to do before. Now we are now branding small. So let's talk about API testing. I'm not going to bore you with definitions because I believe you can read a lot online. But we first thing first is, in case some people don't know, or if you already know, let me do a reminder that API stands for Application Programming Interface. Okay, let me see. Can you still see my slide? Okay. And what am I recording? Fantastic. So my cohort was the test runner for testify. Yeah, was it your cohort? No, it was not even your cohort. The cohort 1.0 that was the runner, and that one was free. The cohort that we did free one was the test runner for testify. Mohammed was one of those test runner. You were in one. You did this training for free, or you're in two. You're actually in two. No, you're not in one. You were in cohort two. First, did you do this training for free?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, the real Agba. That's true. Yeah. Cause what is test runner? Oh shit! I feel like giving you high five. Amazing. You said what?
Give me UK job.
I should give you. I don't understand.
UK job. That's what I mean.
So yes, this is API stands for Application Programming Interface, and basically, like I said, there is definition. There's so much to read online. These are the areas I want to cover up, but just I know these are definitions, right? If you look at it, it's a defined set of rules which contains clearly defined method of communication. It helps you to define blah 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 API testing collection What are the common type of tests you do on API? First of all, you verify whether the return value is based on the input condition. The response of the API should be verified based on the request. To verify whether the system is authenticating the outcome when the API is updating any data structure. To verify whether the API triggers some other event or request another API. To verify the behavior of the API when there is no return. There is so much more and more and more and more and more, like and more. Okay. um Compared to, I mean, now we are doing a more thorough in-depth definition and training. Why do we need to do API testing with the best practices and the bugs? The advantage is that API testing is time effective when compared to UI testing. API test automation require less coding, so it can provide faster and better test coverage. API testing helps us to reduce the testing cost. It can find minor error before the UI testing is done. Those minor bugs will become bigger during UI testing. So when you find them on the API level, it's quite good. It's language independent, so you can do it in any language. If you like, write your scripts or the developer write it in Java, Golang, or whatever, you can always write your API testing in JavaScript or anyone that you want. So it is independent of what was developed. Um, it's quite helpful in testing the core functionalities. It helps you to reduce risks. What are the best practices? Test for expected results instead of what you already have. Add stress to the system by sending series of API load tests, group API test cases by test category, write test cases of all possible combination, prioritize API function calls to make it easier, create tests to handle unforeseen problems, automate API testing wherever it is possible. In fact, it's my company is one of the best practices that you don't go live. You don't even say you are done until you automate an API. What are the types of tests? What are the type of bugs you face in API? The stress, the performance, the security issues, duplicate or missing functionality, reliability issues, improper messaging, incompatible error handling mechanism, multi-threaded issues, improper errors, and many more. What are the types of API testing we have? You can carry out unit API testing, functional API testing, load API testing, error detection, security testing, UI testing, um, interoperability or WS compliance testing. WS stands for, of course, web service. Penetration testing can be carried out on your API. Fuse testing can be done on API. So, what are the tools you can use for API? I believe we have them in thousands, but the one that is latest right now is Postman. But I'm about to break that, but let's chill for now. We have Postman, Catalan Studio, SOAP UI, we talk about Postman, which I believe everyone should have on their system. If you don't have Postman by now, you are not a tester. I'm going to say that with my full chest. You have Postman on your phone, on your laptop by now, and then understanding the API GUI, which again, that's changed a whole lot. I remember the screen. Why am I blushing? Oh my goodness. It is well. Okay, so let me see. Then I started explaining runners and all of those things. But let's go to the actual, Postman. Let's not be using this one like Abba. Come on, Makawai, Makawai. We have the collection. Let me open my Postman. So funny thing is, I know all of you on this call, so if I hear this outside, I know who to hold. I've not been working as a tester for quite a while, since June. So June, July, August, September, October. I just resumed another job this week. And it's quite interesting to see that, okay, you can actually work, you can actually live your life by not doing any job. Ah, so let me share my screen. I'm on my Postman now. I'm on Postman. Where's the screen? I'm not saying you guys chat. In case anybody's chatting. Okay, nobody's chatting. So let me stop sharing this. Let me share my Postman screen. It needs to update. Just a minute. Okay, so let me reshare it. It is up again. Okay, so we have this. So I know the UI you saw there. Of course, that's an old slide, so different from what we have now. Um, Paint is like a workspace that has API security solutions. I'm still playing around it, and it's quite interesting, anyways. Um, so what we have here is collections, and I'm going to make everybody talk because I believe that we have testers on the call. I'm not talking to novice or all these people that don't know testing. So let me find Udeme. So yes, I need to help Udeme to come back to this festive Wahala space because she has been finding on her status all this while. Yes, she has just been finding and be glowing. Please, let's stress her back into the testing mode. So, Udeme, please explain to us about what you think collection is. Why should we even have collections? And what is the collection all about? In your own language, of course, it doesn't have to be dictionary defined.
Okay, so I would say I consider collections like a folder that contains files. In this case, the files will be related requests. Um, Basically, a collection. Okay, so a collection is um a a folder that contains endpoints or APIs that have to do with a particular application or system or feature being tested. So if your company is working on a maybe a health application, all the APIs from that have been written or created from login, from authentication, right to the actual functionalities that the application should do. Basically, all the endpoints that are related for and specific for that application is what would be grouped into the application the collection. So a collection is like a folder, if you permit me to use that word, that contains related endpoints across different modules, different. So within a collection, you can have folders of related behavior to capture related modules, and then each in that folder can then contain your individual endpoints for testing.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Um, and I think she has defined it. Like I'm always saying that look at, but again, I'm moving quite fast though. But we'll talk about API before we even start doing testing of APIs. But like collection, as she mentioned, your postman is your laptop, period. Your collection is like the download folder on your PC or the documents folder or the photos folder, those folder that are default on your laptop. Exactly, that is what a collection is. Now, inside the collection folder, you can now have different folders, of course. You know that inside your download folder, you have the folder for maybe for those that used to deal with perfection, like myself. You also have a folder that you call executable files. You have a folder that you call school documents. You have a folder that you call research report. You have a folder that you call business innovation. You have those folders there, and that is what we do here when we create a new, a new collection or a new. So when we create a new collection, that is what we are doing. Okay, so it's a folder of folders. Okay, so you can keep all those. These are also folders. Now inside there, you can now also keep files, but don't get it twisted. You can also keep folder inside folder. The same way you use your laptop is the way you're going to. So when I see people, when I say open your Postman, and then I see that all their collection is scattered everywhere, no arrangement, I know what your PC will look like. I know what your download folder looks like. Everything is just there. Nothing is arranged, nothing is ordered. So this is where you also learn to manage tree, what we call tree, the way you arrange your files. So you can have a folder, and you have, okay, all of this one is just for this particular project. Now inside that particular project, what are the other collection that needs to be there? I can start creating a new folder, inside this place. And then inside this one as well, I can also create what? Another folder inside here. Inside this one, I can also create another folder. It's just the way we use our laptop. You can keep creating folders, folders, folders. It's a tree diagram. Okay. In fact, I create these folders to a point that what I will have here will be posts inside this one. So everything post will come inside here, and everything put will go inside put folder. And that is just for one section. I can then go to another feature. That is just for another feature. So you can keep creating it like that. So it helps you to manage your work done. And like I said, like she said, whatever will be inside your collection, whatever will be inside each of these collections, sub collections that you're creating, they have to be related. This request has to be related. Okay. So thank you for that explanation. It was quite thorough. I want to go to environments. Let me go to my screen. Who should explain environment to us? I know somebody's being, oh, Jesus, 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 Jesus. Don't let that come. Don't let that come. I will call you. I shall call you. Collection is the project name. So collections is, of course, it's a feature on Postman, but there's collection. Yes, it can be the project name and it can be other features. But I hope you understand based on my explanation now on what and what can be inside the collection. It's not just the project name. It can be many more. Uma, welcome. Now for environment, let me see. If you leave this call, I will call you back. Yisa Latifat, please explain environment to us, man. Nothing wrong with your mic. Your mic is fine. Your mic is superb. Unmute yourself, man. Your microphone is still mute, so it's still on mute. She's not responding to us. Yes, I know you can hear us. And I know there's nothing wrong with your microphone. But if you're not going to say it to us, if you're not going to unmute and you're not even typing, it means that your assignment will be special. Exactly, sir. And your assignment will be very special. And trust me, I'm going to follow you up to deliver the assignment. No problem. Jasper Bibola left the meeting. You will come back. Okay, so let's go with Victoria. Victoria Adegoke now. So please, can you explain the environment to us, please? If you want to use that style of Roke, we'll just come back and talk. Nimbo. Right now, start picking people one by one to come and bring presentation for us on Saturday. Victoria, you're joining this call with 2 devices, so it's not possible that you're not hearing. Father Lord, help me. What's going on now? Why are you not unmuting yourself? Okay, type and let me know if you can hear me and something is wrong somewhere. And like I said, no answer is wrong, really. Don't be scared that you're not going to say the perfect thing. It's best you don't say the perfect thing. We are here. I mean, we that we are here, not even up to 30 or whatever. So we can always correct ourselves here than to go and cast yourself in a live interview. So please, somebody should speak between Yisa and Victoria. This silence, I said past Christmas soon. Okay, I will go up. I'll go up. Madam My Angela, please go ahead. Explain what environment means. That environment features. What does it do then? This is super story. John Paul, I'm coming. I'm coming. Ah. So because Isa did not mute herself, Victoria did not mute. So people now want to be using silence type for me. Maybe I'll remove it from the call. Oh. Probably you can join, but probably it's your microphone that is messing up. That's what I'm going to do now. Once I call anybody and that person did not respond, I'm going to remove it from the call. Then you join back. Mudaima, Angela, can you hear me? Wait, though. Sorry, can anybody try to unmute themselves? Can you really unmute yourself?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So it's just that these people just choose not to answer me. It's okay. We move.
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
No, the
I lost
question
connection.
was, what does environment, explain environments
On Postman,
on
right?
Postman. So wait, I'm calling people. I'm intentionally calling
Okay.
specific people. That's why. I've
Okay.
called Yisa Latifa. She did not answer me. I've called Victoria Adegoke. She did not answer me. Adetomiwa. I will change it for this guy. See, guys, want this guy. Want this guy. Did I ask you to explain? See, God just say this guy. We are doing virtual meeting. Tori, on and on. This guy will not chop bro this week. That's like okay. Okay. So anyways, compare yourself. Okay.
Okay. Can I see?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Mm-mm. I know. I'm not picking some people. I know. I'm not gonna pick. Hmm. Somebody raise your hand. John Paul. John Paul. When wisdom is shaking in your head, that's like it's there. It's there. There's so much wisdom. You want to offload. I know.
Not really offload, just like one simple line. Like,
Okay,
can I
so
go?
yeah, go ahead.
It's like a set of variables that you can use in Postman, like for your request. Like you use environment to group related set of values together. Thank you. That was all.
Okay. Ami, you can add to it. I know Ami also wanted to go.
So I think you have just opened my mind. It's just about where you set up your variables that you're going to use to execute your test.
This is like people are speaking each other's mind. It's like people are choosing each other's mind. People should not be speaking each other's mind. Okay, yes, I think that you just said that, and this is also for people that do not know before. Mary, you want to add to it? Please go ahead. We can't hear you, ma. Our hands is down. Okay, so
Are you talking to me?
no. We saw you unmute yourself earlier, so I thought you wanted to talk. Okay, so environment, like
I wanted environment. So let's say like environment is like your store where you keep all your things that you want to use to cook.
True. You see all these food people.
So
You will know people that used to cook a lot. Thank you for explaining that. So yes, I mean, if I'm going to use a what's it called now, if I'm going to use a house as an example or a kitchen as an example, I would say your environment is like your kitchen, where you get the resources you need to cook in the kitchen. It's like the store, sorry, where you pick up your variables. So in the store, of course, we have the segment for swallow plastics, we have the segment for yam, coconut, cocoyam, and all of that. You also have the section for all those certain ingredients that you don't want to use now, that is also there in the store. So yeah, that's where you manage your set of variables. It can be like someone also write in the comment section, it can be a global variable or a local variable. So since the way I don't want to mention about local and global, what's the difference between a local variable and a global variable? Tomiwa? You see now, he has gone out of coverage area. Anyway, so let me explain that when you're talking about you're saving a variables locally or you're saving it globally. If I save a variable in, so let me go to my Postman. Now this is an environment, this API Autotech hackathon. So let me see. I don't know if I actually saved it. Okay, this is a local, this is the information I have. It's saved locally. These are the variables are saved locally. Now it is saved locally. When I say saved locally, it means that I can only access page URL and this initial value within the API Auto Hackathon collection environment. Like that's the only work, that's the only collection area, that's the only environment I can use. So let me give an example. You're in an hostel. Very good. You're in an hostel. Of course, we have hostel, big story hostel A, big story hostel B, big story hostel C. If I give you access to the key to enter our school, to enter the hostel, the old building, that is a global variable because with that key, you can access, you can get to the door of every room, right? So I can give you a master key that can help you access the compound and every other apartment. If I give you a local key, it means that you can only access that particular building. You can't access every other one. Now that's the same way I want to see it. This Postman is the compound. If I give you a global key or a global variable, what I give you is the active. I give you the key to be able to come into the compound one. I give you the permission. With that permission, you can also access every building, okay? And you can do whatever you want to do in every apartment. Compared to if I give you just a local key, which is a local variable, you can only access that particular house, that particular apartment, that particular building. Do you understand? So it's local and global. So with this one that I have here now, if I write base URL here, and then I go to, let's look for a collection. I go to this NIPS collection, and then I write, I change my URL. If I send this request, let me test something. It's going to give me invalid access token. Let me even use this URL here. It cannot really work. Anyways, now it is invalid. First of all, okay, this is not how you even write it in the first place. This is how you use it. So let me save this. This method is not allowed. The HTTP verb access, you cannot access this page because this page URL is not for you. But if I go to this particular one that owns the collection itself, let's say I have my first, I don't know the one that even owns this hackathon. So if this is the collection that owns it, I can access it. But if it is a global value, I can access it in this collection, I can access it in this collection, I can access it in this collection. I can all the values that is in that that is in that environment, I can access everything in all the collections if it is global. But if it is local, I can't access it in everything. I can only access it in a particular collection. Did that layman explanation make any sense?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that. So that is like basic. So in case in an interview they ask you, you can use scenarios like this. See, one of the powerful thing in an interview is when they ask you a question, you're not giving them a word for word definition. You're able to give them an example kind of explanation. That way it carries the person along. Even if the person does not know this before, it helps them to be able to understand you. If the person even knows it before, it helps them, it shows your depth of understanding of what they meant. So that is just different between local. Okay, Tomiwa also said local means it is restricted. It can be used locally, while global means there is no restriction. Exactly. So that's just a layman explanation. Again, all of this is just layman. I've not explained in depth. So let's go back to, let me see which other features do we have here. Mock server. What about monitor? Who wants to explain what we use monitor for? Monitor. Has anybody used the monitor feature before? If yes, how does it work? Again, all of this is just still just theory. We have not even done anything practical. Wait, you guys don't use the monitor feature.
You can use the monitor feature to schedule your test run. So if you automate a collection, for example, and you want to be able to schedule the collections to run, you can use the monitor to do that.
Fantastic. That is just basically so when people tell me that you cannot use API to do you cannot use Postman to do automation tests, I try to understand what do they mean by that. Because you can actually use Postman to do automation testing. What you need to write is your test, and you need to be able to run your test subsequently within a scheduled time. Okay, and it needs to work and to pass and be able to monitor the progress. I can connect my Postman, funny enough, I can connect my Postman to my email and then connecting my email to my Slack. I am just always a fan of connecting things together like that. So, with Monitor, like she rightly explained, you can scale up and also you get notified when there is a failure. Exactly. In fact, mostly for Postman, you get notified when it failed. You don't really get notified when it passes, right? You get notified automatically when something fails or there is an error. So if you look at it, basically you can create a name for it, say monitor paints failing test, right? What collection has that test you want to run? It could be the inside paint. Um, this is what environment you choose, an environment that works. Um, if you have an external files like a JSON file, like a CSV file, which we'll talk in depth later, so you get to pick your files. Now, how do you want it to run? If you're on a paid coverage, you can use minutes. But because most of us we are on a free plan, except we are working in an organization that needs the advanced version. So since you're on a free plan, and funny thing that a lot of testers don't know that what we are using is free plan. Because I mean everything you think you need is already there. But no, it's not everything that you need that is there. So you can choose it. Okay, is it going to be happening hourly? You want the test to run hourly, which I like to do. Because I just want to know so I can make it run every 12 hours. So because I like my test to run every morning once I resume at work, I would set it that okay, this is 8 o'clock. I want you to run in the next 24 hours. But if you cannot run in the next 24 hours, run in the next 6 hours before 12 hours before I close from work, or 6 hours before I close from work. And then I will set it. And then it automatically select region. You can't choose manually because you're on a free version. Receive notification where the email you want to receive your notification when there is a failure or errors. That's when you receive notification automatically. If it's email, you can add other recipe. You can add up to 3. So it means that after now these 3, no, you can add as for now just 2 because you're on a free platform. Now stop notification after 3 because it means that when I run a test now, it runs again. It runs again the third time, 3 consecutive times it fails, it has to stop. I mean, it has to stop. So you can increase it to let's say 10 times in case you are somebody that one of those people that are deaf. You have to increase it. You can pick between 0 and 100. So I'll pick 99. Let it keep failing 99 times. That is what you are trying to say, which I don't think we need. Once you get a notification that something fails, you should be triggered enough to go and check it on time. So on an average, I put 3. Because the first time it could be network, the second time it could be a change, and the third time it could work. Now retry if runs failed. So this will affect your billing. So let's say you finish running it 3 times and then it fails, you can make it to retry again all afresh. So almost like 6 times. Request timeout. So let's say your test is taking like up to 5,000 milliseconds to run, just time it out. There is a problem already. You know that it's going to fail. Set delay between the request. So you are set the request for login and you are sending another request for sign up in between that period before you finish running this one and then go and pick up another one. You want to give it time. So sometimes you can give it up to 1,000 milliseconds for you to count down before you pick up the second one. Now, all of these things are running by itself. You are not there. Your own is just to set it. Follow redirect, enable SSL validation, which if necessary, and then you create your monitor. So what that does is that if it runs now, it's going to wait for the next 12 hours to run again. So this is your first run, and then when your test run, when it fails, you're going to see it here. It's saying run in progress. This may take some time. You can see the Postman is running from a desktop. It passed. check the Docker. Of course, my Docker is not on, so it failed. You see the graph. There's always this graph. You can also go to the console log to see what actually failed and be able to trouble down the issue and then report it to your developer. So this will also go into the email as well. Okay, not just you. um if you have a summary of all the requests that run, it can do that. If you just want to check a particular request, you can see its own result. If you want to check for individual, all of those things, you can filter your results, and present it. Sometimes I even export this. You can refresh your running, you can rerun it, you can pause it to stop running, you can edit it, you can do all of those things. I mean, monitoring basically. Now, has anybody used the flow before? I don't think so. I don't know. Tester, we don't really use it that much. But basically, what this flow just helps you to do is not like a process flow. It helps you to connect, okay, this feature to this feature is what is working. Okay. And then from there, you can start creating your own. Of course, I've not used it before, but I read about it. They are releasing a better version that they have not really, it's just like a mind map for, yeah, for API. I don't know what Postman is doing anyways. So you can create, a variable. You just add what variable to what variable goes to the current value. That's like a graph representation of what you are doing, basically, but we have nothing there. History, you can also see your history results here. API, for those that are creating API, you can see your documentations here. You can be able to see in details what this is meant for, question what you should question, leave what you should leave. Developers also use this to create their own APIs, but you can always find your documentation here. We also have the workspace. So if you work in different organization, like some of you do, you can create different workspaces. So you have worked in this company, InterSwitch, you leave this or you go to another one, Carbon, you leave this or you go to another. So you can create different workspaces. It's not like one workspace work for all. No, it doesn't work for all. I have different workspace, but I don't know if I'm logging into the right account. Oh, this was my old company account. So if I switch to my personal email account, I'll be able to see it. What did he do now? Yeah. Sorry, let me reopen it. I'm sure you can't see my screen again, so let me share my screen. Tell me what say advanced. What's advanced postman? Tell me what is advanced postman? Because I've not touched anything advanced here. So create different workspace, API network, partner, public, private. You can explore a lot of things in case you are just new to using Postman. And one of the things I love about Postman is that they do a lot of documentation. Funny thing that that there are other tools you can use for API testing, but one of the reasons why Postman is quite popular is for the documentation purpose. It's quite very detailed. Okay, very, very detailed. You can connect it. It was a joke when you said something about flow or so. Oh, okay. So it's very detailed documentation. That's one of the powerful things about Postman. In fact, they have an institute for API testing. There is Postman student program that you can take and you get certified as a Postman student. Yes, you can take it. You can take those courses. So I personally not so much of a fan of taking on these exams and all of those things, but again, nothing stops you from trying, really. We also have, I think at this point I've touched a lot of things. This is more of release notes that you want to create, learning center, scratch pad, support center, which they are basic things. When it comes to writing a test on, of course, this is almost 4:30. So we need to, when it comes to writing a test, this window is a very powerful tool. This is where your responses come to when you write a test. First of all, this is where you choose your method. There are different methods in APIs, which people don't use more. People just use this get, post, put, delete. Which I don't think people use delete that much, but there are so much of them here. This is where you write the URL, which we call the request URL, what you want to send. All of this information will be here. You also get to see where you can have parameters. Okay, what are the parameters that are required for that test, which would have also been given in your documentation. What are the authorization? You can choose different type of authorization. Bearer token is so. Does anybody want to tell us between difference between bearer token and basic authentication? Another silent night. Another silent night. What is the difference between bearer token and basic authentication? You can unmute if you want
The
to give it a
input
try.
parameters, yeah. The input parameters. So for bearer token, you pass the actual token that is generated. So for example, if only authorized people can probably access a get list of banks endpoints, it means that to fire that endpoint, you need to pass in a token of an authenticated person, someone who is authorized to access the endpoint. So most of the time when you log into an application, part of the response body contains a token that authenticates the user. So you can copy that token and use bearer token to pass in the token that you copied. But on basic auth actually takes in the input of username and password. So the same authorized person, but in basic auth you would pass in the authorized person's username and password, while in bearer token you pass in the token that was generated by that authorized person's username and password.
Fantastic. So who spoke? Is that Udeme?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So thank you for that. And like she shared, with basic authentication, what basic authentication allows you to do is it allows you to access an API directly with your credentials, username, and password. Okay. With bearer token, you access your API with a bearer token. You will need to call, with a token. They call it want to get bearer token or want to get the data. Now, let me re-explain what that means for bearer token. With bearer token, is a scheme that is dedicated to you accessing that same thing that you're using username and password for basic. You are accessing it through a token. Okay, it's still the same access that you're going to get, but one uses username and password, while the other one uses a token. So that's the difference between a basic auth and a bearer token. Okay. All right. So thank you for that quick explanation as well. So yes, there are different types of them. Some even use digest, or some use O2, O1. I most of the time like using let me not say it. I use any one of them comfortably, because at the end of the day, I always try to pass my value into a to the variable in the environment, right? So that it can always switch. Even when I switch my users, I can always pass the bearer token of the user that logs in with username and password. So yes, that is also possible. So these are like the most two popular ones, but of course there are many more. You can even use the one that already exists before to do your own token. In the other section, again, we always have some, we call them prerequisite for carrying out a request. I don't want Udeme this time around. I want someone else on the call to explain what headers mean in Postman. Anybody else? These are the things you need to know. Like, you're not just gonna write 200 okay in your API itself, because when you don't know these basic things, these are the ways they can shoot you off your fruits in an interview. Anybody? Are we saying that it's only with the men that have been working on API?
No, my understanding, I might not have a textbook version of it, but when I inspect elements and I go to the network calls, the headers that I have in the network calls there, that's what I put in my headers here, it's more like a key value combination kind of thing. So you that right there you also get both the bearer token as earlier mentioned and other things that are required. So you can impute them here and use them for your tests.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Let me allow them and not blocker. Udeme, do you have anything to contribute to that?
Yes, sorry, I actually stepped out a bit. I didn't hear what the
Oh, I
first
was
person.
asking about headers. What does headers in Postman? What are they used for?
Oh, okay. So headers can be used to specify certain parameters that should be allowed before the request can like successfully pass through. So sometimes things like content type,
Yeah.
sometimes if they can use clients, your developer can decide to use the headers to store client keys as other secret keys, certain keys that parameters that um, should be configured and put pass through on that endpoint for it to successfully return a response. So headers are in some way, it might not be textbook standard, but in some way you can say headers are like an inbuilt security parameter that beyond authentication, it ensures that the person who is firing that endpoint has the right credentials to access that endpoint.
Thank you. I mean, you also try. Like I said, I don't even need textbook standard. I just need to know that we have people that have an idea. So, like both of you have said, who was the man that talked earlier?
Uma,
Uma.
yeah,
What cohort are you running currently?
none.
Oh, okay. So the link was posted on the general channel on Testars Network, right?
Yes.
Ah, okay, okay, okay. That's fine. Okay. So, um, like both of you have said, well, elders are that they are more like important elements of an API request and response. Most importantly, they represent like the metadata associated with the API request that you have sent. In real sense, I will call them like a combination of pairs of values that are used in the server and client exchange of information. I know I've not defined what API really means in a layman language, but basically these are the pairs of values. Headers has a pairs of value that are required to exchange an information between a server and a client. So whatever information that is required in response to that particular request and response that you need are the things you find. So when you send some request, you might not even see content type in some request headers because it's not associated with that API request that you're sending at that point, or you need them as the response. So mostly I call them the twin pair of information that is needed for a server and a client to exchange that information. So um body, of course, when you want to send a test out, you mostly see different there are different requests. Especially if you want to send out a request, a post request, or create a new request, you have different type of body type. Body types are the information that are needed to execute a particular request or to carry out a particular request. So they can come in different form. They can come in form of you need to fill a data in your form, probably on the UI, you need to fill a form data, you need to use a form UR encoded, you need to use a raw data, you need to use a binary, you need to use a GraphQL. Now, GraphQL is something we don't really touch a lot of time, but I think it's time I don't want to be touching on the very common ones nowadays going forward. So if I want to do API with you, I would not go through the basics again. If you need my 4 hours, see, can you please drop the 4 hours API testing course that I did? You can drop it on the channel, on the resources channel on Testars Network for me, please. So I will not be going to those basics again. I'll be touching something more in depth. So go through the Postman and play around with them. Very important. Pre-request are what are the things that should be written ahead before you request to send. In fact, definition is even here. Pre-request scripts are written in JavaScript and are run before the request is sent. So these are like the thing. If you want to read more about it, if you click on the link on that screen, you also see where write to pre-request page, what is pre-request, what are the examples of pre-requests. Like I told you guys, Postman is a in fact is a documentation tool. It's a documentation, so it has a lot and a lot and lots of content. I would also share um let me go to the resources channel and share this learning center of Postman there. Um where is the functional testing channel? Okay. But we also have a resources channel. So again, everything we are doing today is nothing technical, just showing you the theoretical part of things. So you can learn a lot from that resources, prerequisite, and what are the things before you run the script. Then where you now write your test. Okay. Now this is where I'm going to have a lot of issues with a lot of people when they start doing tasks together, because you're going to be given a task. A lot of time when I see testers write tests, API tests, mostly what they're writing is 200. Okay, they'll just, what do? They just scroll down here, status code 200, bam. They will now start doing it, they now start replicating it, copy it. Paste it, change the code, say this one is 204, they enter again, and they start writing like that. But this this is not an API test. This is not an API automation test. Okay, this is not API automation test. When you are testing, like I showed in the first slides that I shared earlier, there are things you check for in an API testing. You don't just check for status. Is it 200? Okay, it's 200. Okay, okay, great, let's move. No, it doesn't work that way. You need to have much more that you're looking for aside from is it 200. Okay, but we'll get to talk about that. Settings, you want to enable SSL certificate. Probably you're working in a company where all of those things are being set, so you need to set them out. Redirection, yeah, follow original HTTP method, follow authorization. If you're using your free tool, use your free tool. Now, when people say I can do API testing, and when I look at what they write, I'm like, you don't even know that some tools or some features are very accessible on your API testing. I know I used to use my cookies at times to even generate a test script that I can use. Actually look at this. You see this code sign here. What that does to you is that it helps you translate all of this thing into a different language. Yes, all of these tests that you write here that was automatically, you can switch it to, let's say, Node.js, and it will convert all of these tests to you into Node.js. And you can use it, you can even do it in Java, especially some of us that do Java. You can use it into my Selenium and WebDriver. So when you see some people go extra mile to write Java and Selenium for API testing, not because they can't use Postman, but they have helps as well. And these things do not need to be written offhand. So they are amazing tools on Postman that you can change it to Python, you can change it to Python request, and you have actually, you have converted what you want. You can write a comment about this test. You guys can share, do like a code peer testing together. Request ID can be generated, related. See, there is a lot that you need. You can see the way people are commenting, people are contributing. These are ways you can also be contributing, especially if you want to be in the Postman or API saga. So you can contribute a lot there. Um, Basically not so fast, not so, I don't, Postman is not really complex as a tool, but it's very powerful to carry out a very strong API testing. Now, for today, before we say it's a good day, one thing I want you to know thoroughly, it's about what is API. Now, I know we have been testing for years and for years, but the truth is, if you don't understand what Postman is, and for those that have done my training before, of course, you know that I would have explained this to you at one point or the other. I would say that API testing, okay, have you dropped it on the resources channel? So fantastic. So API testing, how do I describe API testing to a layman? I would say I always use food restaurants. You go to a restaurant, you want to eat a food, right? What you then have to do is you get to the restaurant, you sit down, and then a waiter comes. Hello, Uma, can I get your what's it called now? Can I get your order? Then you start saying, okay, you know what? I want fried rice, I want chicken, I want moi moi, I want salad, I want all of those things. And then the waiter goes to the kitchen to line up your order. When they are done with it, the waiter is going to bring you the food and serve you. Now, who is the API person between you that is sitting down and the waiter? Anybody? And so you, the waiter, and the kitchen. The kitchen is the one that has the information, the food, the everything. You are the one placing the order. Who is API? Exactly. Amina, you want to say something?
No.
Okay. So I think that was a mistake. So exactly, the waiter is your API. That is what your API does. Your API does not have it does not generate data by itself. You need to know that. Your API does is to collect information, withhold it, get the order, and swap it. So it's going to a database. So that's why when you tell me that you're doing a backend test or you're doing an API test and you don't have access to the database, I'm confused. I'm always confused when people say they're doing API testing and there's no database. Like, I don't understand. What are you doing? So where are you picking the information from? That is why you need to know your database well enough before you even say you want to start doing API testing. Because that is the kitchen, right? And yeah, that's the kitchen. And your API is the waiter. And you are the one that has the user stories, you have the user requirements, you have the user scenarios that you want to test for. Those are the orders you want to place. So by next week, I would like you all to have finished that 4 hours API training. Guys, I want you all to have finished it. It can be draining. And don't watch it 4 hours on a roll. Break it down, 30 minutes today, 30 minutes tomorrow. Before you know it, even before Thursday, you're done with the 4 hours video. So watch it. And trust me, I'm a very good orator. You would enjoy 1 hour, 2 hours, 3, 4 hours with me without even know that time has gone. So, and I'm not bragging, but that's a little brag. Don't mind me. So that's simply API. You need to know that, hey, I want to test API, but it's not just I want to pick up API and then start writing API. Like, what are you testing for? That is why when I want to start testing for API, one of the things I have to do is to understand the scenario, understand the use cases, understand the test cases I want to write. Because you are the order, you are the one placing the order. You need to, that is the user story. That is what you are going to use to test against whatever request that is being bringing. I see the swagger to be the use cases, to be the use scenarios. In fact, I see it as a user story. When the developer give you the swagger documentation, any API documentation they give you, that is like your user story. And then you start building from it. So when they give me, like, when my developer give me a collection with 20 requests, I can produce up to 70 requests out of that 20 requests that they have given me. Why? Because I will need to start generating different scenarios. Also, you also need, first thing first, again, the beginning of your test is not the API documentation that they've given you. The beginning of your test comes from the user story. You need to understand what you're testing for. And that is why sometimes my developer will be like, okay, you're making me to write more scripts. I'm like, yes, because this part is missing. And if you don't understand your user story to that point, you will not even know that some requests are missing. So first, you need to understand this is missing. You need to understand the story. You need to understand what you are testing for, how you are going to test for it, what is connected to what client and server, what server is connected, what request is connected to which request. And the second part you also need to know is that you need to know your database. Now, if you don't know these two things, my darling, you have no business carrying out API testing. You have no business sending an order. You don't even know where the restaurant is, and you don't even know what they are cooking from, because you need to understand that what they are cooking, is the cooking even done properly? Is it in a mama put restaurant that's the backyard? There is a shalang, there is a pit toilet beside it, and then they are cooking for you, and everything is messed up, and then they are bringing you one food. No, you need to also look at that database. Okay, what is the missing key here? Where is the primary key? Where is the unique key? Where is the foreign key? What table is connected to which table? In this table, in this particular table, what are the columns? What are the fields? What are the rows? What are the values? If I send a request, where should this information go and save? So if I'm sending for swallow now, I should not be going to continental rice and fry and Indian rice to go and be looking for swallow. I need to know the right database where this information is saving. When I use a delete request on my API, does it actually delete in the database? When I send a request, okay, let's say I send a get request to get all the list of information. If I see 10, is it actually 10 that is in the back end? Because when they tell you that there is no more food, you know, when we go to restaurant now, when you go for weddings, they say, it's rice that remain, no meat don't finish. Has meat really finished? Like as meat, these are the things you test in the database. As the meat really finished, or you still have like, you know, the fried one under the bed that our mother used to keep, and then they are telling that there's no meat again. These are the things you need to understand when you are doing API testing. It is beyond just coming here to write 200 status code. Anyways, let me stop there for today. But do we have any question? Next week we start. I believe that you'd have not gone through the 4 hours video and you would have questions to ask me. If you go through that video and you come to this one, you don't have a question, I believe you don't understand what was taught there. Yeah. So you need to come with question. Of course, I'm going to come here to do something more advanced than giving you a basic one, but you need to come with questions. But at this point, I need to release you for those attending the meeting by 5. Any question, please? You see the silent treatment. Oh Lord, you guys need to talk. Oh, are we fine? Are we good to go? So, at this point, I feel there's no further question. There's no comments either. So let's call it a day. We'll meet same time next week, Saturday. Also, we need to start. Yes, I'm looking. Let me say this, that I'm also looking for 2 things I need to announce. We need a community manager. So in case you have any energetic community manager, please direct them to me. We want them to work with us at Testify full time. We are going to be needing them. So we need a very strong community manager. That is one. So secondly, we are going to be having a conference, you know, in December. Of course, it will be in Ibadan. Sorry, it will not be in Lagos. And it's going to be a huge one. So in case you know somebody that wants to go into it, we're going to be having different workshops, but details will be shared with you later. But just know that by December 10, we're having a conference. Anyway, so Tomiwas, I have a question. In a situation where the API uses a get method and you are doing automation, loading the collection to Jenkins, how do you do automation where the collection is being checked across different environments so that it won't break? How do you do automation where the collection is being checked across different environments? It won't break because if I'm loading it on Jenkins, for example, I already have my environmental variables. Because if you want to load your API on Jenkins, you need to export. You need to connect your. Sorry, let me check something. Is the feature still there? Okay, it's not. So what I used to do most of the time is that if I want to do automation with Jenkins, I carry out all my tests on Java and Selenium. But if it's for the case of Postman, which most of us do, I would have exported my environment, I would have exported my collection and load them into my Jenkins build when I'm creating a build. So that way it doesn't break, right? If you want to, if you just like your variables, you are going to feed it with all the ingredients that you want it to cook, and it's going to run through it. So I really don't know when you say different environments. You could set a build before. Of course, you know it can run in different version. You could set a build that would run this script first in this environment. So you could have both your local variable, local environment loaded in your Jenkins builds of the test script session. You can also have the global environment loaded in your Jenkins in the test script session. So you can set a particular build URL to run this test first, then it runs the other one. So even if it is get, so let's say you're automating and when you get this one, you need to delete is the next request. Then you need to create another one so that you can always keep getting your information. But let me say answer will be better than explaining, but it's possible, right? It's much more possible. Does it mean the database has to be the same across all environments? What do you mean by across all? What does the environment mean? Is it the same Postman environment? Of course, you have to use the same database. You don't create a new database for a new environment. Except I'm wrong. Except I don't get what you're saying. Staging queue environments. Of course, if you are doing a staging, of course there is a staging queue environment is queue environment. When it comes to staging and production now, that is quite a bit restricted. That will be more from the developer's perspective. They have if you have access to your staging or your production database, you can carry out the same thing, across. So no, I get what I'm saying. So you're going to create different builds for staging and for production environments. You're going to create different builds for QA environment, and you can't do them together. No, you have to do them separately, because even in your Jenkins setup, the URL you use, there is a URL build for staging, there is a URL build for, of course, for your production. You can't carry out, I don't even expect you to carry out automation for your production environment. Let's start with that. No, you're not meant to carry out. Exactly. They usually don't even give you the production database access. So you don't even need to carry out automation for your test in the first place. The reason why you see, and that brings us down here, guys. I need to say this again. The reason why you're doing automation is to reduce the effort of regression testing. My question is, why are you doing regression testing on production? You should not be doing that. That's the essence of this whole automation is to reduce your efforts in manually testing a test all over again, manually doing your regression test. So why are you carrying out regression test on production? If you're not carrying out regression test on production, then it should be done manually. Then that simply means you are not meant to be automating a staging or a production environment. Yeah, then you don't need to automate it. You don't need to automate anything staging. I know staging is a replica of production, not a production, but you don't need to automate that, because you will not be carrying out the frequency of carrying out the regression or retesting on an application is not the same as you do on staging. You will mostly, before you even go to staging in the first place, everything is fine. So you carry out, let's say there is a ratio of 10 to 2 or 10 to 1, 10 times your regression and every other kind of testing you are doing, and then 1 time for staging. So you don't need to automate it. The moment you want to start automating staging and production, that's laziness. Period. So you don't need to automate that. So they will not even give you access to it in the first place. Udema, you want to say something?
Yes, please. I wanted to quickly add, yeah, there are some cases where the organization may actually require that the tester should set a collection to run on production, but even with the setup configuration for that, DevOps has to be involved, because they would have to specify the ports and the for your collection to run that allow it access to run. And then there are selected endpoints that the entire engineering team will agree that you should run. Because I've worked in a company where they've mandated that all testers should set post-deployment tests, and those post-deployment tests were supposed to be configured on production, so that after a new release or deployment has been made, it will trigger those tests to run, and they will ensure that if our tests worked well on staging or QA environments, they are also passing on production. So yeah, there might be some exceptions sometimes where the organization will require the tester to set up tests for production, but it will be closely monitored. That is, the ports, it will be set up by DevOps that they would be the ones who give you access to run those collections. So I'm just mentioning that it's possible that your organization might require tests on production, a collection to run post deployment.
Okay, so okay, thanks for sharing that, Udeme. And also, I think that now speaks to, then that again, back to what Tomiwa asks, then you cannot still set your automation to run like the way it runs on staging. You should also set a different environment and code to also run like that on production. No, it's a different setup entirely that you're connecting your automation into. Funny thing is, I've not had that situation that they mandated us or require us to automate pre-post deployment checks. So yeah, I don't know. But like she mentioned, you don't run post deployment check with the same pattern the way you run your regression test in-house. So that has to involve a lot of people, DevOps, and again, in a case where you are being required, mandated to, not that you just feel like and then you want to start running it, because again, it's quite risky to do that. So yeah, I don't know. Did we answer your question, Tomiwa? And thanks for the contribution, Demi. Did we answer your question? He wants to give me silent treatment. You were typing fast in the first place, so okay. So I believe there's no other question. All right. In the absence of no other question, yeah, let's call it a day then. We'll meet again once the same time next week. Please don't forget to complete that video I shared. And if you have any question, please let's make that group active. Let's make it active and share your questions and your concerns. All right, so have a great day, everyone. See you same times next week. You're welcome, Oma. I'll also drop of course this is recorded, so I'll also drop the link in the resources channel. Bye everyone. Bye. Let me stop recording and then let me play music.